can't believe it was just a week ago that we visited Sao Paulo for the largest free speech rally I've ever been to in my life. Scratch that, the largest rally I've ever been to in my life. I would estimate there were around 200,000 people there. And I was told by folks there that there had been earlier rallies by the same side of the freedom versus tyranny debate, the Bolsonaro side, that reached 1 million people. They do it big in South America. It was such a blur. We flew down 10 hours on a night flight. We did journalism all day, and then we came home the very next day. So it almost feels like a dream. But I think it was very important we went there because I saw no other English language journalists covering what I think is a very portentous battle. Will Brazil lurch back to become a kind of dictatorship as it was just 40 years ago? Or will it go down the path of freedom? There's other freedom activists in Latin America, whether it's Nayib Bukele in El Salvador or Javier Milei in Argentina. Which road will Brazil choose? And we're joined now by someone who follows Brazilian politics full time. In fact, he's a victim of Brazilian politics. His name is Rodrigo Constantino, and he's actually a kind of refugee in Florida, if I understand correctly. He joins us now via Skype. Rodrigo, great to meet you in person.
My pleasure. Appreciate.
Well, thanks for joining us. I had a crash course in Brazil. I mean, really, you can't sum up a country, especially a country that large, in 36 hours. But I feel like I got a good taste for the battle. Free speech is part of it. Elon Musk may be part of the solution. It looks like a democracy from the outside with Lula, the president, and a judge, Alexandre de Moraes. But that's just the trappings of democracy. Underneath it is a bit of a tyrant. That's what I took away from it. But look, I don't want to say I managed to understand Brazil in just 2 days. Help me out. What's really going on? And tell us a little bit of your story, because I know that you were directly involved.
Yes. Well, I think you get totally right what's going on in Brazil. We are not a democracy anymore, and I'm pretty comfortable saying that because I'm a victim, as you mentioned. Almost 2 years ago, I had my passport canceled. Not even traffic dealers or drug dealers or homicides have this kind of punishment. As a journalist, I had my passport taken away from me. My social media is under censorship. And with 1.6 million followers in Twitter, for example, they are not able to see my content. And now nobody is able to see any content anymore because the X platform was banned from Brazil. And also I had my banking accounts frozen. So why? Because of opinion crime, because I've been criticizing what Alexandre de Moraes and the Supreme Court, what they have been doing in the last 3-4 years. So you're not supposed to criticize the electoral process anymore. If you criticize Alexandre de Moraes, you are attacking the system and the institutions, the democracy itself. So to tell you the truth, I think Brazil is under the radar of many people right now, and you're doing a great job showing that, because we are kind of laboratory to what's going on in the West as a whole. Like the left found out that they don't need the people and the Congress anymore. If only they can have like 6 judges in the Supreme Court, they can rule. They can do anything they want. And Brazil is like a laboratory now for this kind of juristocracy.
You know, it was fascinating. There were more placards and posters and signs criticizing that activist judge, Alexandre de Moraes, than there were even mentioning the president, Lula. Even though he's so famous, he goes by one name like Madonna or Cher. Everyone knows who Lula is. But the one that they were most worried about at this rally that I saw the most signs about, there was even a impersonator with a shaved head and wearing a cape. Like Alexandre de Moraes, he dresses up like a cartoonish villain. He really has been having secret trials with secret orders. Is that how you had your passport seized and your account shut down? Was it this same judge or was it another judge? Is this widespread?
The same judge with his own decision. It was not even through the Supreme Court. Like he takes his decision by himself and persecutes and censor and go after. And we had even political arrests in the country. And one guy died in prison because of Alexandre de Moraes. So to explain why Alexandre de Moraes was so popular in these protests and not Lula, it's because Lula is there again in the presidency because of Alexandre de Moraes. So pretty much Lula is now kind of a puppet. The real tyrant, the one in charge, and with the whole power to do whatever he pleases, actually, is Alexandre de Moraes. He included Elon Musk, one or probably the richest guy in the world. He included Elon Musk in one of his inquiries, investigations. And he could be arrested, for example, if he goes to Brazil. Also, he froze money from Starlink, almost 20 million reais, which is $5 million. He froze the accounts of Starlink because of what happened in the platform X. Yeah. So in terms of rule of law in the country, there's no rule of law anymore. If somebody invests his money in Brazil right now, I think the person is crazy. They don't see what's going on.
Wow, you said a lot of things. Let me ask you a couple of follow-up questions. When you say that de Moraes sometimes just acts by himself, I guess you mean there's not a hearing that's brought to him. Normally in courts you have one side and the other and a judge is in the middle, but you're saying that the judge himself came up with the case and made the decision without anyone arguing before him. So the people he goes after might not even be there. Is that what you said when you said acts by himself, that he just sort of, his word becomes law, there's no even hearings? Is that what you mean?
It's that and much more.
I'm in Brazil, so I'm using a VPN to get on the internet. What's a VPN? It stands for a virtual private network, and you get around these government firewalls. Suddenly, the president of Brazil banned his whole country from going on Twitter. It was a political censorship news. I've downloaded the VPN from a company called PIA VPN. We've teamed up with them at Rebel, and it's a great deal. I got on the internet really quickly, safely, and even I'm a bit of a technophobe. I managed to figure it out with 2 clicks. And here's the great news. If you go to piavpn.com/Rebel News, not only do you get a big discount, but they pay us a bit of a commission too. Everyone's a winner. Your freedom, your VPN, and a little bit of cash coming to support Rebel News. I'm using it myself to get around the censors in Brazil. You can use it too. That's piavpn.com/Rebel News.
Yes, there's one trial, for example, that there was the defense lawyer there, and it's a famous guy now in Brazil. He was in the protest that you watched. Sebastião Coelho is his name. He was the defendant of one of the political prisoners in the system, Felipe Martins, accused of kind of preparing a coup. And because he was in the airplane with Jair Bolsonaro, the former president, coming to Miami, but he was not in the plane, and he proved that. But Alexandre de Moraes didn't care. And Sebastião Coelho said some harsh truths in front of Alexandre de Moraes. He didn't like it, and now he closed. Nobody can support the client anymore in front of the judge. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that he was supposed to take the cases to the whole group in the Supreme Court. And he doesn't do that. He makes decision by himself. And sometimes he takes the case for half of the Supreme Court. We call the first turma and the second turma. It's like a class. There is one class and second class. And he doesn't bother taking it to the whole group, because he knows that former President Bolsonaro appointed 2 justices and they would go against his decision. So he wants to make it sound like the whole group support him. That's why he takes the decision by himself.
You know what? The weaponization of the judiciary, it sounds like it's a whole other level in Brazil. Totally. I want to talk about, and I knew this because Elon Musk owns the Twitter company. To punish Elon Musk, they've gone after a different company called Starlink, which is the internet, the space-based internet that serves remote areas. So in Brazil, that's particularly important. It's an enormous country, much of it in the forest, remote areas. So de Moraes, as you mentioned, has seized assets belonging to Starlink, even though that's not the same company as X or Twitter. Elon Musk has a big chunk of Starlink, but it's an American company with many other shareholders. And that's just sort of seizing something because you don't like the guy involved. I mean, there's no way the two can be legally connected. So let me ask you this. My observation with the U.S. trade representative is that has got to be the most terrifying cabinet minister in the United States. It's basically the person who goes out in the world and fights any country that is unfair to American companies. He or she is the person that enforces trade treaties, to launches international lawsuits, imposes tariffs. Like the U.S. trade representative strikes fear into the heart of other countries more, I would say, than even the Minister of Defense, the Secretary of Defense. It's the trade representative that goes to battle against our country of Canada over softwood lumber or things like that. And, that preamble is to say, has the U.S. trade representative or has the United States government spoken out over the seizure of assets of an American company called Starlink that's got legally nothing to do with X? Has America put its foot down, or have they rolled over to de Moraes?
Unfortunately, it's a Biden-Harris administration, and they've been pretty negligent with the national interests, actually, of United States citizens. So, no, they haven't. Through the ambassador in Brazil, they made clear that it's a dangerous path. But imagine what could happen if Donald Trump would be back to the White House. So I think Elon Musk, close to Trump as he is now, he's planning on that. And he kind of made a threat to Lula. He said, I hope you enjoy flying commercial airplanes.
Right.
Because remember, that could happen. The former president of Argentina, before Javier Milei, that is close now to Elon Musk or to Trump, was Cristina Kirchner. When she came to the UN in New York, she used a commercial flight because she was afraid United States government would seize her airplane. So that could happen to Brazil now. We kind of become the axis of evil. We are close to Venezuela, to Russia, to China, and we are making threats to U.S. citizens and seizing their assets. And as you mentioned, Starlink is not a whole owned company by Elon Musk. He has partners, important ones. It's important for national defense here in U.S. So I think they're messing with big guys now. And there's going to be consequences.
Yeah, I mean, we know Elon Musk because he's always giving interviews and he's always tweeting outrageous things and funny things and smart things. But we forget that he's actually an industrialist. He puts more satellites into space than anyone else in the world combined, more than the entire countries of China, Russia combined times 10. SpaceX is so important for the U.S. government that he's an interesting character because he torments the likes of Joe Biden, but America couldn't really operate without his technology. You mentioned early on Venezuela, that perhaps Brazil is using Venezuelan style tactics. And that's interesting because, of course, the whole world followed Venezuela first under Hugo Chavez and then under Nicolas Maduro. As it went from a country with so many riches, especially oil riches, and it became poor and people actually started to starve, and they brought in brutal Cuban military to help control the people. I don't think we've seen too much from Nicolas Maduro. There was a question of the last election of being outright stolen. Is Brazil becoming the bad boy of South America. What's the relationship with Venezuela and Brazil? Do Lula and Maduro get along? Do they have agreements, military or intelligence agreements? Like what's really the shape of things? Because I see two bright lights in Bukele and Javier Milei. But those are smaller countries than Venezuela and Brazil.
Yeah, but Lula is pretty close to Maduro. There is a thing called Foro de São Paulo. It's where all those communists get together to decide the strategy to take power in the whole continent. And Lula is pretty close to Maduro. He always supported Maduro. Maduro didn't become a dictator now. This election was a fraud, as many others. But the difference is that Lula is trying to play the good guy, the Democrat here, and he's complaining about what Maduro did and asking proof of the election process. He's doing that as a theater to the West, because in the end of the day, he's close to Maduro. He sent guys there, the movement that invades private property, rural, in the agro industry, called MST. They are Marxists, they are communists, and Maduro celebrated his victory with those guys. They are pretty close to Lula as well. So it's a shame, a theater, and everybody knows that. So in the end of the day, yes, Maduro and Lula are close. Maduro is always one step ahead of Lula, but this time he used some sentences that could be Alexandre de Moraes or Lula speaking. Like, who are you to judge what happened in our country? Is a threat to our sovereignty. It's exactly what Lula said about other governments in the West, complaining about many things he's been doing. So it's the same strategy, theater, and in the end of the day, we are close to China and Russia. Those are the two systems in control in Latin America right now.
It's the news event of the year. Canada's most controversial premier sits down with Canada's most controversial journalist, and everything is on the table. Come watch Ezra Levant one-on-one with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith in front of a live studio audience in Calgary. Nothing's off limits. Nothing's held back. Questions that would make Justin Trudeau invoke martial law. Answers that will make Stephen Guilbeault pee his pants. You're not going to want to miss this one, but you have to be there in person at the Rebel News Live mega conference in Calgary on October the 5th. Tickets are limited, so drop everything and go to rebelnewslive.com right now. Special discounted prices for Patriots and special extra high prices if you're with the CBC. Go to rebelnewslive.com now.